toggler swatch may be one of the most powerful stacks inside the swatch pack for Foundation 6. It allows you to add and remove a class from a layout either by click, by hover, or on page scroll. So to start, you need to design your layouts for what the default state and what the toggled state is going to be. In here, I've built a little layout here that when I add a toggled class, this entire layout changes. Just as a demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and add a toggled class to the custom classes here. When I do that, we'll see what the finished state is going to be when I actually toggle this, or when I add a toggled class to this layout. Now, I'm not going to do a full tutorial on how all that was done. You can see that here in the project file. You can download this project file from the Foundation 6 product page. And we've clearly labeled, here's what the default styles are, and here's how we're changing those styles when the toggled class is added to the parent container. So now that we've built our layout and we've made the layout change purely by adding a class, how can we trigger these? Well, there are two different toggler stacks that allow us to change state or add a class via three different methodologies. We can either, in the main toggler stack, we have the ability to trigger based off click or hover in the same stack. And then there is a toggler on scroll that allows us to actually add a class when an element scrolls into the page. So let's look at the more simple examples here. Let's look at hover and click. So here in this example, I have my button, my click demo button, has a class of clicker. Then my hover button has a class of hoverer. Okay. Now, ultimately, I'm going to be targeting this container that has the class of toggler demo. Okay. So we have two things. We have the trigger, and then we have the actual selected element that we're going to toggle the class on. Those, again, there's two different elements. So let's look at the hover demo. Here I'm selecting my swatch. So I want to affect toggler demo. Again, I'm affecting this container. Then further down here in the toggle class on selector, we need to define what class we want to add to toggler demo in order to update or modify its styles. Then at the bottom of these settings, we have the ability to define what our trigger is. In this case, we have the hoverer class. And remember, that is the class added to our hover button. So then here I triggered my action to be hover. We also have the ability to only trigger a particular animation one time, or you can actually toggle the trigger element itself. Okay. What that means is when you toggle the trigger element itself, you're essentially ignoring whatever is selected up here in the selector, and this trigger class also becomes the trigger and the selector. Okay. In this case, we're not going to be doing that example, so I'm going to turn that off because in this case, we actually have two different elements here. So that's pretty much it. In this example, again, I'm hovering over the trigger element, which is this hover button. And whenever I do that, it adds the class. And with hover, when I unhover over an element, it will remove the class. Now with click, if I click, it will add the class. And if I click it again, it will remove the class. Now, toggling on scroll does have a little bit more configuration you need to do. So similarly, we need to target our demo. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be the class of whatever we want to add a class to. So remember, these swatch selectors, toggler demo, which is this container. Well, it's this container further down on the page, but it is the same thing, right? We're going to be toggling this container. Next up, we want to define inside the toggle class on selector the actual class that we want to toggle. And this is the same as the hover example where we're toggling the toggled class. Next up is the trigger. Okay, so in this case, I have a class called scroll trigger. And if we look in the demo down here, on this to column, I have a class called scroll trigger. So whenever this to column scrolls into view, it's going to add classes to the two child elements here. So I have two demos here. It's going to add it to both of them. And if we look at the example here, we'll see that I only want to toggle children of the trigger. So this was a setting I skipped previously because I wanted to show it here. This allows us to, if I had unchecked this, whenever I scrolled this into the view, it would actually trigger all toggle demos on the page, including this one. So because I only wanted to affect the styles of the children that are within the trigger, I'm going to actually apply this setting, toggle only trigger children. Okay, now, if you're familiar with our animate scroll stacks, we have the ability to toggle the class when we go in the page as we scroll up, as we scroll down and content is scrolling up. As it scrolls out of the page, so it scrolls above to the top of the browser, as it scrolls back down into the browser viewport, and then back out as it scrolls down the viewport. We can toggle all of these, so we can define when we want that class to be animated in what scenarios. So in this case, I'm actually doing it in all cases. So let's have a look at that. So if we scroll down, we'll notice as soon as I scrolled into the view, those classes got applied. And then as it scrolls out of the view, it then triggers again. As I scroll back down, I'm going to do it another time. And then as it scrolls out of the view, you'll notice that it does it again. So those are the 4 cases in which a class can be applied to these elements. Now, the next settings here allow you to control when the animations are triggered. So when is the end position at the top of the browser, and when is the start position at the bottom of the browser? When the top of the element reaches 80% at the bottom of the browser window, the animation will start. And next, when the end trigger, so when the bottom of our element reaches 20% of the top of the browser, that's when the ending animations or the out animations will occur. Now, to make this easier for you, there's actually a show markers and preview setting. So if we turn that on, we'll now see that we have a scroller end and scroller start markers on our page, and that's where the starting positions are going to be. And as we scroll down the page, we'll see that we have start and ending positions. So as we saw here, when that start passes the scroller start, the class gets added. And the class remains. And as soon as the end reaches the scroller end, the next animation is going to start. And as we scroll back down, when end hits the scroller end, it's going to start again. And lastly, when start reaches the start, the last out animation is going to start. Now, as I said before at the beginning of this video, these toggler swatches are probably some of the most powerful swatches in the entire Foundation swatch pack. There really is an infinite amount of animations and effects that you can do. It's really only up to your imagination here. So have fun. You can download this project file on the Foundation product page, and I hope you enjoy it.